Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for joining. I'm Andre, head of product here at PDFTron, and joining me today is Aaron.
Hi, Andre. Hi, everyone.
Aaron is head of our solution engineering. Now, in this webinar, what we're going to cover is we're going to cover live updates for the product that are upcoming or either already released and you haven't seen already, as well as kind of general overview of our product if you're a new customer or prospect and just looking to learn all the different things PDFTron can do. Now, in this webinar as well, you can interact with us in the chat options. So if you have any questions that pop up as you see this specific demo, then we can go ahead and answer them as we go. Okay, perfect. So first things first, I'm going to go ahead and jump in and show you the latest and greatest product updates. And then for the next portion, I also have a bit of a teaser for you, something that we haven't mentioned on the webinar mail out. I have a new bonus feature that I'm going to show off that's coming this January at the end of January. And after that, I'm going to hand it over to Aaron. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and we'll just jump in to the demo. Okay. All right, perfect. So this demo is actually available to you. You can just navigate to the pdftron.com/demo to explore all the other cool and exciting functionality. Specifically, the part that I'm going to focus on got released in 8.1 and came up quite a bit in the past. And it's all around page manipulation experience. So as you can see here, I have the container that I can pull out and I can expand it to see more pages. Now, the new additions, we really wanted to make the multi-page select mode much easier. So I can just toggle it on to go ahead and select the pages via checkboxes. Now, I can also select additional pages with command, holding down command or control, or if I want a specific range of pages, I can hold down shift and then click the page that I want to kind of go to and select. Now, inside of this page manipulation panel, we have added a new contextual menu. And this contextual menu allows you to interact with the selected pages or with the page selected, and I can quickly and easily move pages to the top or the bottom of the document, apply the rotation, or insert blank page above and let my creativity flow. And we have also introduced a new replace function. So for example, if I wanted to go ahead and replace this page with a new cover, I can do so either by passing it a URL to the document that my new document leaves, or I can upload a document directly from my computer by drag and dropping or selecting a file, or from the Files tab. And let me walk you through. Because PDFTron WebViewer SDK is not off-the-shelf product that you just simply grab and enable within your environment, although you can do that. However, it is more meant to be customized and configured exactly for a specific use case, workflow, or customers. To provide further integration with your system, the Files tab offers you to pass an array of the documents that may be associated with a specific project or a case that you may be working, or just with a set of files that the user has access to. Let's say, coming back to the use case of replacing the cover page on a specific document, maybe there are several different versions of the cover page that we want to do for different users. We can pass them simply in an array, and the Files tab would populate us and provide us a list of all the different files that the user can select, and then they can go ahead and select the page. Now, let's go ahead and insert a blank page above. Here we go. Now, one thing to mention, this context menu, just because the product is customizable and you can kind of modify it and really make it your own, we have added the ability to add your own groups and add your own buttons to this context panel to really say, I want to go ahead and extract the page and maybe upload it to my S3 bucket or an Azure storage or GCP, or maybe move it into a new document and create a new project or create a new case. Really, the possibilities here are endless. When you do place a button in the specific context menu, what you get out of it is you get an event that's raised that provides you which pages of the document were selected that then can be used to create a new blob or a new document object that then you can interact with. Yeah, so Daniel has a question here, same as replacing page. Can you insert a new page from a document? Absolutely. So right here, you would just go ahead and extend this, add a new button to say insert a page, and then you can invoke the same dialog to insert and get a page out of the document. Thanks, Daniel, for jumping in with question. Okay, so the next thing, let's say I added this blank page. I actually want to go ahead and place some free text on it. Now, as you can see here, we have added some of the new text styling options in the font selection, where you can select the font that you want to place. I still like Helvetica. Maybe I'm going to go ahead and use slightly larger font, and then I can align and justify. Let's say we actually want to go ahead and make a kind of title for this specific document. So I can just go ahead, insert my text here, and say the title of my document. Awesome. And then let's take a look at our new and improved notes panel. So inside of the notes panel right here, I can go ahead and navigate. As you can see that it actually captures the rich text styles of the document that we have selected. It captures the font, whether or not it was bolded, to provide users a little bit of idea of which comment or text they're looking at. And then we have also made some updates to the highlight behavior. Let's go to a page that has some text and content inside of it and take a look. Previously, if you interacted with our product, you may have remembered that it would kind of go ahead and capture, the text that's been selected, and then provide you with an ability to place a comment directly on top of it. Previously, if you selected two paragraphs, it would take a lot of the space in the screen real estate. However, we went ahead and condensed it to provide show more or show less, since the user already knows the text that they highlighted. And really the goal here is to provide how this particular highlight is important or how should it change. So this way, when I update this comment, I'm not overriding my selection, but I'm just placing an additional comment directly related to the specific thing. And now if I add a reply, hello, as you can see, we have replaced the button. Instead of saying send, we have new icons that allow us to save even more space and leave more room for messaging. And now when I create the reply, we added this divider right here to indicate a comment thread specifically on this comment. Something else you might notice is the new comment count here on top that provides you with a total number of the comments on this particular document, and you can still sort and filter just to get the comments that you need. So this is all I had for all the existing updates had released. Now, I did mention that I'm going to show you something special, something that's coming this January, end of January, and let's take a look. So in this particular demo, we're looking at the same document. Now, there's probably been lots of times where you're working on a PDF document just to notice that there's a typo, something is out of date and needs to be updated and corrected. Before introducing this functionality, the user would have to go find the original source of the document and then go ahead and make the edits and then upload them back as a new version, creating a bit of versioning nightmare, I guess, or just inconvenience of having to go back and find the original document. Now, if they don't have the original docx document, they would have to download the PDF and then seek different PDF editing, text editing solutions, and then upload again another version. So in this particular thing, what I can do, let's say I want to go ahead and change the title. I can simply click it, go ahead here and say PDFTron overview. Hit save. Now here, maybe I want to change the layout and positioning of all the different paragraphs. Instead of two columns side by side, I actually want to move this paragraph to the bottom of the page here and make it span across both pages. And go ahead and do so here. And since the last time you plan to embed PDF functionality, PDFTron has added 160 plus different formats, and maybe we should go ahead and mention them. MS Office, video, and image. And I really want to make sure that those are bolded just to really call them out. So I can do so, select them, select the bold, and Perfect. And when I go ahead and hit save, it will go ahead, update the paragraph, and make it reflow across the page. As soon as I'm done with all my changes and edits, I can simply exit the edit mode, and now it becomes part of the PDF. I can then download the document or stage it for the next version. Perfect. One of the questions that just came in from Manuel is the text replacement going to be allowed on PDF files? I believe so. You will be able to open up the PDF file, and then you will be able to make the changes and then save it. You might need to rerun PDF just to make sure it still matches the conformance level. Now, with some of the PDF documents, it could be that some of the fonts are maybe stripped out or missing. So in that case, we have font substitution logic to ensure that when you're modifying some text that might not have that specific font embedded, we'll go ahead and swap it with the next available family. Now, something else that's coming in the same release for PDF editing is the ability to resize and edit some of the images on the document. Let's say we have a logo, and based on the new text editing that we have performed, it may have shifted around quite a bit. So we might need to reposition the logo, resize it, or even remove it from the particular document. This is and much more is coming in the WebViewer 8.3 release, which I'm super excited for at the end of the January. Now, to get an update of all the different changes that are inside of it, make sure to check out our blog when it comes out with a WebViewer. And if you already subscribed to our email newsletter, then we're going to go ahead and put an update there as well. Without further ado, I'm going to go ahead, stop sharing my screen, and hand it over to Aaron for a live demo of our product.
Thanks so much, Andre. Appreciate it. Yeah, as Andre mentioned previously, my sort of section of the demo will be more around kind of an introduction to PDFTron, our stack overall, a bit of the corporate history, and then going more in depth on the demo that Andre was just showing. And as well, I'll do a bit of an overview about our guides and how to get started and so on. But as with Andre's portion, feel free to post any questions inside of the chat window, and we can address those kind of as we go along. So what I'll do now is share my screen. So I'm going to start off at PDFTron.com. And just as with Andre's, we can get to the demo here if we go to Technology and then Launch Demo. And that'll bring up our live demo of WebViewer. So this is a demo basically where you can try out our WebViewer SDK and its full functionality, and even upload your own documents or try out some of the set of sample documents that we have here. But just going back to the PDFTron.com portion here, there are some interesting links besides just this launch demo. So for example, if we go over to developers and then guides, this will bring us over to the WebViewer guides around different use cases, getting started with WebViewer, but also adding in different functionality or how to customize it for your own usage. So I would definitely recommend trying out this section when you're first getting started. When it comes to the demo, under Get Started here, you can see there are a variety of different ways that we can go about setting up WebViewer in our own environment. So you can set it up from NPM, or you can download directly sort of a zip file of the full WebViewer SDK. And then we have guides for integrating WebViewer into a variety of different frameworks, or integrating into different platforms like Salesforce or SharePoint. But just a bit of background about WebViewer and about PDFTron SDK. So we started developing PDFTron SDK and really our entire code base in the late 90s, around the time that the PDF specification was first published. Now our initial offering is a native SDK that we still offer called PDFTron SDK. That's a native toolkit that was originally developed for Windows, but then was ported over to Windows and Linux and Mac OS, as well as mobile platforms like iOS and Android and UWP. And a few years back, what we did was we took that same native code base and compiled it over to JavaScript. So that means that we can run it entirely inside of the client-side browser. So we can take a lot of the same functionality that we've built up over the years around the entire document lifecycle, around creating documents or viewing documents or changing or optimizing and annotating them, and around converting PDFs into other formats as well. And so all of that document workflow functionality then is available here within kind of our client-side library in pure JavaScript running inside of the browser without any sort of plugins or really without any server-side component necessary to run this. We do have some additional server-side components that can help out in terms like of the file types that we support, and in some cases we can help out with performance by adding some of our native components server-side. But in general, many of our customers do deploy WebViewer in a purely client-side fashion, just in pure JavaScript running inside of the browser here. And so that's what we're seeing here with our WebViewer demo. So what this is doing is opening up a PDF document that we have hosted at a URL on our site, and it's downloading the bytes of that PDF and rendering that here inside of the browser. It's not calling out to any services or REST APIs or anything like that, and it's performing the rendering here on the client side. So rather than having to go back to the server for a rendered image of a PDF and then downloading that, which could be quite expensive, right? Especially if you have lots of users, then any sort of server involvement really adds up over time as more and more users join the system and start taxing the CPU and the memory and the network of servers. So by offloading that to the client-side browser, we see, not just a more performant solution for the individual, but kind of overall everyone's experience is much better, and it's kind of a cheaper way to deploy as well because you're automatically scaling up as you add new users. So as I was saying, this PDF document is downloaded from a server where we have it hosted, and WebViewer is able to load it quite efficiently as well. So this is a relatively small document that we have here of just 9 pages. As you can see, we can do things like zoom into the document directly here inside of the browser, and that content then is re-rendered at the correct zoom level. So rather than just being all blurry as we zoom in, this content is being re-rendered here in the browser, and so we get very sharp vector-based rendering of the content. Another thing that WebViewer is able to do quite judiciously is download only those bytes that are needed to render whatever is visible on screen. This is taking advantage of a feature inside of the PDF format, wherein the linearized PDF is organized such that the bytes for each page are grouped together. So the bytes for the first page are grouped, and then the second page, and so on. And so as a result, when WebViewer is downloading the bytes of the file, it's able to just download only those bytes that are needed to render whatever is visible on screen. And that means it could throw away existing bytes too, and therefore keep a constant size memory footprint. And it also makes it possible to very quickly jump to other pages inside of the document and just re-render that bit without having to download and keep resident in memory that entire file. That also makes it possible for WebViewer to support very large documents as well. Here we have this document up in the gigabytes, and so WebViewer here is able to render this right away without having to download the entire file, 2 gigabytes of data, and store that in memory before it's able to render it. Here it's able to just download those bytes that are needed and show that immediately. And that makes the overall experience just the same as opening a much smaller file for the end user. So that really sort of opens up the set of documents that you can view inside of WebViewer, since you're not artificially constrained by some very low file size or anything like that. Additionally, WebViewer can support quite a few different document types besides PDF as well. So there are many kinds of documents that it can just automatically open. So for example, image files, it's able to read those up and show those inside of the browser. And then we could actually interact with them just as if they were a PDF. And in fact, that's sort of what's going on under the hood. WebViewer is actually taking this image and kind of converting it into a PDF here temporarily when it's showing it. And so we can do things like add annotations on top of it, just as we would with a PDF document. doing things like drawing shapes and maybe typing free text and so on. And then if we were to download this document from WebViewer here, that would download as a PDF copy. So, but of course, our library is quite flexible, so we can always take this kind of intermediate PDF copy and convert that to an image as well. So some of our customers, for example, have a workflow where they keep all of their documents in TIFF format. And so what we'll do there is bring up the TIFF file inside of WebViewer, allow them to make annotations and changes and so on. And then when they're saving it, they can just reconvert to a TIFF here in the browser and then save that back to their file storage. So in addition to image, however, we have some other types as well. And one of the more interesting ones is our office support. So we've actually built this ourselves in-house from the ground up. We're able to support sort of the most common office types. So Word files, Excel files, and PowerPoint files are able to be loaded up here directly inside of the viewer. And just as with images, we're sort of doing an implicit conversion into a PDF. So it's not sort of a full Office replacement. Rather, it's very similar to converting an Office file into a PDF copy and then loading that in something like a desktop PDF viewing and editing software suite. So as a result, we can do things like select text and highlight it. We can also perform things like text searches within the document. So if I were to search for the word "V" here inside of the document, what this is doing is performing a search on the text inside of this file here in the browser, and it's giving us a listing of all the different search hits that have happened inside of the file, along with the particular page number and the ambient text around it. So this surrounding text is shown as well, just to give the end user some sense of context of where this text was actually found on the page. And this is quite convenient because then users can jump around to just the search hits that they're looking for, just based on that ambient text. Or they can also kind of traverse through each of these with these backwards and forwards buttons. We have quite a few different options with searching as well. Here we have case-sensitive searching. So if you wanted to strictly only see lowercase THE, that's something we could search for. Or if you wanted whole word searching as well. So if you didn't want to search for the word theocracy, you just wanted THE, just the word the, that's something that could be restricted in here as well. And our underlying searching APIs are more powerful as well. So for example, we have regular expression searching possible with our lower level APIs, and so that could be an option for users as well if you wanted to let them use wildcard searches or other more powerful features from regular expression searching. So let's see here. So while we're still on the subject of viewing, there are some features of PDFTron's viewer that are a little bit different and offer some advantages over those of some competitors of ours. So one of those is that we have built-in support for something called layers inside of a PDF. And this is something that comes up a lot in drawings or blueprints or product specifications or things like that. And this is a feature where different parts of the document can be turned off to give kind of a simplified view. And so here, for example, here's a drawing of just a building. It's the kind of a drawing that might be used by somebody who, say, might be going on site, like say a plumber could be going into this building to repair something, and they might use this drawing as a kind of a map to determine where all the plumbing is inside of the building. But as it is now, it's kind of a bit messy and a little hard to read. There are lots of things being shown here. So one thing that the PDF format supports is toggling off different layers to kind of simplify this view. So here what we're doing is turning off the HVAC from this drawing. And immediately it's much easier to read this. But we can continue, maybe removing electrical and equipment and just leaving the architecture and the piping information. And so if I were a plumber going on site, this would be a much easier view for me to traverse and figure out exactly where the plumbing is within this building. As a result, it's a much easier experience. And so for many of our customers, this kind of workflow is quite essential. Being able to toggle these off and on, and just be able to look at these elements in isolation. We see also another benefit of rendering the PDF document here within the client-side browser. Not just that we're able to toggle these layers off and on here and not have to go make a server round trip every time we're doing so, but also this very detailed rendering we're getting of this vector content. And so we see this thumbnail preview kind of appear very briefly as we're zooming in, and then that gets replaced by the true vector preview. So this kind of pixelated view here, that's what it would kind of be the experience of end users if they were just getting an image from the server and having that rendered in the browser. But by actually bringing down the PDF itself, we have the true vector information of this file and can render it, accurately and precisely here inside of the client-side browser. So it's quite a powerful experience, one that's quite unique in client-side rendering solutions. Another one, another sort of differentiator of PDFTron when it comes to our rendering is our ability to handle colors accurately. So we support separation and spot colors inside of the document, and we can actually toggle those on and off just as we could layers. This is kind of a unique feature that we have, and really helps people see, exactly the color layers that are inside of a document. That can be very useful in sort of a printing workflow, where we might have lots of different spot colors, or we might have a printer with a specific ink applied, and so what we can do is toggle that on and make sure that the ink is being added as we expect. We can also, if you see these percentages here, as I'm mousing over the document, what it's doing is calculating the different values of each ink channel. So here, in this section here, it's 100% Pantone 1375C. Whereas over here, there's zero amount, but there's more of this 299C. And what that enables is the ability to kind of test how much ink is going to be on a specific spot on the page, which is quite useful when performing printing workflows or printing documentation or product packaging and things like that, where you need to determine the amount of ink that's actually going to go onto the page, so that you can be sure that that's not too much ink for that spot on the page, and it might do something like cause the paper to deteriorate. So as a result, that can be quite a useful sort of feature to be able to get from a PDF renderer. And we support other kinds of advanced rendering for printing solutions, such as overprint and ICC profiles. So we have full support for those within our viewer. So all of those can be leveraged within our toolkit. This, of course, kind of comes up a lot when we're talking about CAD documents. Now, we saw a CAD document before that was just sort of a drawing of a building. But additionally, we do support other CAD file types as well. So yeah, we just have some different file types that are shown inside of the viewer here. But in terms of CAD conversion, we have a native module server side that can be used to convert DWG, DGN, RVT files into PDF. And once they're converted into PDF, then we can show them here inside of the browser and enable users to collaboratively view and annotate on these documents and kind of share comments about them with each other. Let's see here. Another kind of interesting thing about our viewer is that it's quite customizable. So in terms of kinds of different views and so on, those are things that we have high-level APIs for, as well as lower-level APIs too. So here in this sample, what we can do is kind of see how easy it is to make high-level tweaks to WebViewer's interface. So for example, if I wanted to do things like turn off a dark theme or turn that on, or remove specific buttons, maybe to maybe lock down the document a bit more and prevent users from downloading or printing or selecting text on the document. Those are things that are very easy to do. We can actually, if we open up this code snippet here inside of our guide here, we can see that there are very high-level APIs that we're invoking. So after we're instantiating WebViewer here on the client side, we can just invoke these APIs to do things like remove the download button or the print button, or remove text selection. We can get even more fine-grained here as well. So say, we wanted to slim down this user interface to really streamline it for less tech-savvy users, then that would be pretty straightforward to do here just by toggling these different buttons off. So maybe we just want to leave some freehand tools in an eraser, and that way it's kind of error proof, right? I don't have to think about what kind of tools I'm going to use. It's just this slimmed down UI here at the top. And so on a user by user basis, you can make that possible just by changing the code that's actually running inside of the client side browser and turning off these different buttons that users don't need and might be confused by. So that's one way to toggle different parts of our UI on and off. That said, we do have some more powerful customizations possible as well. So just for reference, we do actually have our full UI source code posted to GitHub. So if there's anything about how WebViewer looks and feels or the behavior of the viewer, that's something that can always be forked. And then you can go in and directly tweak that code. The WebViewer UI code is React-oriented JavaScript. So you can, if you're familiar with React, go in directly and modify the components, or clone them, or do whatever you'd like. Or alternately, some of our customers have come to us and have explained that they already have user interfaces built out, and their users are in some cases very well trained on a particular interface. They're very quick, using it, and so they're very familiar with it, and they would really like to stay on an existing UI. Just kind of switch to say WebViewer's client-side rendering, or take advantage of some of the features that we have around converting or processing documents. So in that case, what they can do is actually leverage WebViewer within that existing UI. And as a way of kind of demonstrating that, we have this flipbook sample here. So this is just a flipbook UI that we actually got from GitHub, and that is just a free sort of viewer. So if you had users that were very used to this UI, you can actually integrate WebViewer inside of that and leverage that client-side rendering, just as this sample is doing. So here, this is using WebViewer to render this document under the hood, and then just show the resulting page inside of this viewer. So there are quite a few different options for customizing WebViewer, and additionally, we do have ways to show multiple WebViewers in the same view as well. So when we were bringing up WebViewer, it was just a matter of instantiating it on a page. And so it's possible to instantiate more than one as well. Here in this sample, what we're doing is actually bringing up 3 different WebViewer instances on one page. And it's for the purposes of this comparison tool. So the idea of this tool is that we have sort of the old version of a document on the left, and then a new version of a document on the right. And then here, what we're doing in the middle is a pixel by pixel comparison of these 2 rendered versions of the document. So it's essentially taking this rendered page as an image and this one as an image, and then comparing the 2 and showing the differences here in this middle view. So for example, text that's been added shows up as blue, and text that's been removed shows up as red. And this is something that you can take and tweak if this kind of diff would be useful for your users. We include the source code for this as part of the WebViewer samples. And so you could take that and tweak it however you wish. We have callbacks for when the pixel is being, when each particular pixel is being compared. You can control the threshold or the output color, and therefore have quite a bit of granularity over what it actually looks like for the end users. And we have some of these customizations already built in. For example, we've heard feedback from some of our customers that rather than having a color-based indicator, that it's much better to have, in some cases, an opacity-based indicator. So here we can actually do that as well. Ones where we can move this slider back and forth, and that shows which text has been added and which text has been removed. So that might be a little easier, especially if the end user, maybe has issues with color blindness, and therefore red and blue might not be the easiest way for them to view these documents. Another kind of tweak that we've added in is this nudge tool here. And what this enables us to do is kind of make fine-grained like adjustments to how these two documents are being compared. And the reason for that is that sometimes, say, if you're getting versions of a document from an external source, someone outside of your organization, they might be, faxing or, scanning and emailing documents in, rather than just sending the born digital PDF copy. And so in that case, you might be comparing an image to the original document, and that image might be scaled differently, or if it's something that they faxed, it might be a piece of paper they've placed on a fax document, and it might be tilted a little bit, or skewed, or rotated. And so this nudge tool here is meant for these kinds of fine-grained adjustments to documents that are slightly misaligned. So you can change the scaling or the rotation or the translation of these two pages. And that way you can minutely adjust each of these to make sure they line up. So so if that's the kind of diff that your users are looking for, that can be quite useful. But not all users are looking for exactly this kind of diff. So this kind of document comparison is useful if we're talking about drawings or graphics or things like that. But for some kinds of content, a more semantically aware kind of comparison is useful. And for that, we've actually developed kind of a semantic text comparison. So what this sample is showing is how we're taking the text of one version of a document and the text of a subsequent version of that, and we're kind of comparing them and making annotations based on those differences. So rather than showing a third view or anything like that, what we're doing is highlighting the text that's changed in both versions of the document. And this kind of comparison is actually creating a new PDF copy. This is something I could actually download directly, and with these annotations built in, sort of see this diff comparison in another viewer, like say Acrobat or Zoto or another tool like that. But these kinds of encapsulation of differences as annotations makes it very easy for me to use our annotation workflow to navigate through these. So for example, what I could do is, let's say that each of these differences had to be approved by someone. Maybe these are changes to regulatory language or legal documents that need to be approved by legal counsel or someone like that. And so what I can do is use each of these annotations as kind of a workflow point for each of these changes inside of the document. So for one thing, I could say, approved, something like that on top of the document. But we also have these annotation states associated as well. So these are just some default annotation states that are specified by the PDF specification as the default annotation states for each annotation. But this is something that can be totally customized. So if you had a particular review and approval workflow that you wanted your users to follow, then you could maybe have custom states here that say things like approved or not approved, or violates a specific kind of regulation, or something along those lines. It's all totally customizable. So whatever helps your users guide themselves through the process of reviewing documents is something that you'd be able to add in. So someone was asking whether the comparison feature works for image-based PDFs as well, or only for text-based ones. And so if you were to OCR documents prior to running them through this, then you'd be able to perform the same kind of semantic comparison. Let's see, and then we have other variations of comparison as well. So just based on feedback from customers, there are lots of different ways that people might want to compare documents. And so, for example, this sample here is taking two PDF versions and merging them into one, and using PDF blend modes to show differences as red or blue. So this is just kind of another method for doing the same kind of thing. So I kind of wanted to go back to some of those annotation states that we saw earlier. And that kind of workflow of being able to kind of collaborate between different users is a pretty powerful one. So here in this document, for example, what we have are just some users that we've sort of set up inside of this sample. Now, just as a bit of background, WebViewer doesn't have built in any sort of notion of user authentication or which users are allowed to log in, or which documents they might be able to access, or anything like that. We have tried to keep WebViewer as agnostic as possible about such details, so that you can customize it and integrate it into whatever system you already have. So however you're already authenticating users, WebViewer would be able to fit into that workflow. And however you're storing documents and securing documents, you'd be able to integrate WebViewer into whatever that architecture looks like. So when it comes to setting up different users here when we're annotating, so for example, let me log in as Sally here, and then highlight a bit of text. And when that happens, what's happening is an annotation is getting created, and that's being assigned the username of Sally. The actual APIs to make that happen are just some client-side APIs here after we've instantiated WebViewer. Just as with when we were customizing the WebViewer UI and removing buttons and things like that, we were invoking APIs after we constructed WebViewer, and here we're doing the same. So we're setting the username as Sally in this case, and we're saying the user is not an administrator or anything like that. And again, this is just sort of totally free form. This is just a string we're passing into setCurrentUser. So it could be whatever value you'd like. The idea is that whichever logged in user that you have here, then it would be up to you to programmatically set the username. And then we can come in as other users as well and make additional annotations. So let's say this Justin user comes in as well and maybe draws a rectangle. And we see that now it's assigned to the Justin username. Additionally, if this Justin user were to come in here and make a comment, they could do so as well. So they could say, let's review further. Save, and so that reply is coming into the Justin name, and then as well we can use @ mentions to invoke other users and maybe alert them of a particular comment thread associated with an annotation that maybe they should take a look at. So here the Justin user is saying @, and then there's a list of users that have popped up here, and we can select Brian. So we could say, Brian, could you take a look? And that list of users that popped up is something that's entirely customizable. That's just in the WebViewer configuration of saying, which usernames should pop up when we type in an @ here, and then additionally, how those users are notified is something that's entirely under your control. So again, there's a callback for when @ users are actually alerted. And so that could be something, if you have a workflow system in the back end, you could add a new entry there saying, hey, Brian, you need to take a look at this particular comment thread. Or it could be something like an email maybe being sent out to that user. Really, however you'd like to alert the user, that should be something that's possible. So this Justin user here is actually logged in as an administrator. So we see the API here is promote user to admin here inside of the WebViewer APIs. And what that means is that the Justin user can come in here and change the annotations of other users. So whoever else is logged in, Justin is able to go in and slightly modify that. But other users can't modify annotations made by others. So if I log back in as Sally here, we notice that Sally's unable to modify this existing annotation. Sally can go in and can go in and comment on an annotation, but Sally can't actually modify that existing one. And then we have the notion also of read-only users, and read-only users aren't able to make annotations or modify anyone else's, but they're just able to go in and review what's already present on the document. And that could be very helpful if you have external users that you need to bring into a workflow to kind of just stay apprised of what's going on with a particular document review and approval. So, we've seen some of these, some of the basic annotations that we have. some of the ones that a lot of our customers are looking for are stamps in addition to shapes. So for example, the ability to add an approved stamp or a not approved stamp onto the document, or to use custom images. So for example, I could grab those image like an image from my disk and then make that into a stamp on top of the document. Really, that's up to you. And then there's a possibility to add in custom preset stamps as well if you wanted to. Present those to the users. Now, note that this is in English here. We do have full support for internationalization. So here, for example, in this sample, this is kind of easiest if I go into the stamps here. So here we see, in English, the approved stamp and kind of these other built-in stamps. But if I were to switch to French or other languages, the tooltips and so on are all ones that change, and then the stamps will as well. Let's see. Now, I believe there was a question about how exactly these annotations are saved. So here, all the ones that I'm making onto the document, without actually downloading the file, these are initially kept separate from the original PDF. So we have a guide here that kind of illustrates this a bit better. But the idea is, by default, what we're going to do is leave the underlying PDF document read-only and isolate all form field changes and all annotations into their own XML-based layer here. And so that way, what I can do is share the XML of annotations with other browsers, and that's how different users can collaborate with each other in real time. If I wanted to share that XML through WebSockets or through a channel like Firebase, or whatever method to share that XML between different browsers, that lets me have different users collaborate with each other. And since I have full control over which XML is shared between which browser, that means that I can really customize that kind of collaboration. For example, some of our customers who deploy into schools will enable teachers to set up groups of students to work together. And so they're all able to see each other's annotations, but other groups can't see what other groups are doing. So that way, each group of students is working in isolation. But the teacher can go in and see the annotations made by everyone. And so that kind of collaboration configuration, that's all quite possible with WebViewer, because we make sure to design WebViewer to be as flexible as possible and to accommodate as many scenarios as needed. And so within our guides here, we have a lot more details about how that collaboration can be set up within your system. And we also have pre-built samples on GitHub as well. So that that setup that uses WebSockets to communicate between browsers is available here on our GitHub samples, along with some more details about how it actually works under the hood. And then we have another sample here based on Firebase, and so that could be another method of sharing those XML encoded annotations between different browsers. Let's see, kind of another interesting bit of annotation magic that we're able to do is measurement. So this is something that we've had in for a while, where we improved this quite a bit in the last version, and then this will be improved further in our upcoming version. And what we're able to do is actually measure things on top of a construction drawing. So here, what I'm able to do is draw a line between, say, these two different walls. Now, when I bring this up here, this is initially sort of default values based on the PDF page size. So, initially this is saying 4.24 inches. Now, if I'm measuring these two sides of a bedroom wall, clearly that's not the actual scale. So a lot of times, construction drawings, blueprints, and so on will have a scale value somewhere on the page, and I can use this this calibration tool here to customize what that is. So let's say that instead of being 4.24 inches, this is actually let's say something like 8 feet. And so that way, now the measurements are calibrated to that scale, and subsequent measurements that I make on top of this drawing will have that will have that scale built in. So we see now this is being measured as 10.83 feet, which makes a lot of sense for a kitchen. Besides just this kind of linear measurement, we have a lot of other shapes built in as well. So you can see a lot of those up here, for example. So I can draw a square here, and then I can get the perimeter and area measurements from that annotation. Another kind of useful thing here, while I'm bringing it up, is just that with each of our annotations, you can also turn them into links. So if you need the ability for users to be able to select parts of the page and then link to another document or another page within that same document, that's something they can add interactively here as well. So they could link to some arbitrary URL or some other page. So that can be very useful for maybe highlighting a bit of text and then linking to a particular bit of documentation elsewhere in the file. That's something that can also be added automatically as well. If you take a look at some of our advanced samples for WebViewer, especially here on the full APIs, we have samples that show how to perform custom logic when you're opening up a document or when you're saving it. And you can access our full document processing APIs as part of this. So you can do things like search for text programmatically in a file and then add links onto the page before the document is even opened. And here, this sample that we have shows this, and this is included with WebViewer as well. So if you download the SDK from our site or from NPM, and then take a look at the samples, this will all be included and is ready to run out of the box. And so serves as a pretty useful starting point for adding your own custom logic into WebViewer when you're opening documents or closing them. And then additional samples for modifying documents at a low level are here on our console samples as well. So these are pretty helpful for learning how to modify PDF documents or other file types at a low level and display those then in the viewer. And so that gives quite a lot of flexibility in terms of programmatically automating some of the user's tasks, even here in the client-side browser. So that doesn't have to be sort of a server-side pre-processing thing. Rather, we can do that on an individual basis as customers are loading up documents here in the viewer. So that makes it much easier to deploy. And if you wanted to add links to all of your documents or add stamps to all of your documents or something like that, that's something you could just do as people are opening them up, rather than having to go back and do some sort of mass batch processing server side that might take some unbounded amount of time. So I think in the remaining time, I just wanted to cover some of our forms capabilities as well. So we have full support for filling out forms inside of our viewer, and we have a lot of hooks in there as well for you to customize that experience. So here, what I'm doing is just bringing up a standard income tax return document from 2017. A little simpler back then, but what if I go into the view here and type in my first name and then tab away from that field? Over here on the left, what we can see is that there's JSON that's automatically generated from that. So we've created a JSON object with the field name as the key and the value being the value within the field there. And so what we're trying to show here is that you can hook into form field events and programmatically control them. So you can programmatically extract these values, but just the same way, I could actually pre-populate the form fields we see on this form here. So that one workflow could be, if someone types in their first name into this field, I could then go back to a database and find maybe all the users who have the first name of Aaron. And if maybe there's only one user who does, then what I could do is populate out all the values inside of this form here. I could automatically add in the address or social security number or other values. And that way I eliminate the chance of those being added in erroneously. And we have support as well for things like form field validation or JavaScript associated with particular form fields that can run automatically and do things like automatically format fields or calculate them. But another kind of very interesting workflow that we're able to provide because we have the full PDF document here in the client-side browser is forms building. So this is kind of a workflow that comes up a lot with scanned or faxed documents. So a lot of the times that you would want to OCR a document. If it's a document that has form fields on it, it's often very useful to add fillable form fields back into the file. So turning this from just a, essentially an image or an image with text laid over it, if I can actually add in form fields to the document, that makes it something that users can interactively fill out again. So here I'm just adding in a standard text field. And then once we actually apply these form fields to the document, then it's just a standard text field, just as I would have if the document were born digital. This also makes it possible for me to add in signature fields as well. So it's not just text fields or radio buttons, but also signature fields here too, and that makes possible some of our digital signature workflows. So here, I've added in a signature field, and that enables me to do things like perform an e-signature. So here, what I can do is just add my signature appearance onto the form field to kind of e-sign the document. But we also have support for true digital signatures as part of WebViewer. And these are signatures that these are the ones that can be validated or invalidated after the fact. So, if you sign a contract and then somebody modifies it saying, oh, actually, this contract says that you owe some large amount of money or something, and maybe that wasn't in the contract when you originally signed it, but somebody modifies the file after the fact. With digital signatures, you can actually invalidate the signature if that ever happens. And that kind of invalidation is something that we've added in pretty recently into our digital signature workflow. So besides just being able to create digital signatures on the document, whether that's one field or multiple fields, or whether that's certification signatures, we also have this the ability to validate these signatures as well. And so it's a new kind of tab within our signatures panel here, so that if you did want to come in and validate an existing signature, that would be something that would be possible. And again, that fits very well with our OCR workflow. So we have a server-side component that can run OCR on documents if they happen to be missing text. And so these things are quite complementary functionalities. So here we have this document that's just a single image where all the text has been stripped away and it's just an image file. And what we can do by OCRing it is turn it into a selectable version again. So this combined with our forms building capabilities really enable you to take faxed or scanned documents and turn them back into documents that seem as if they were born digital PDFs. So I think that's coming up to the sort of the end of our presentation here. So if you have any further questions about WebViewer or about PDFTron's technology at all, we're definitely happy to schedule one-on-one meetings and maybe discuss in more detail how our toolkits can help out with whatever solution you're trying to provide to your users. So please feel free to reach out to us. If you go to PDFTron.com, you can click the Contact Sales button, and that might be the easiest way to get a hold of someone from our team. You can also, if you're looking to reach out, you can get in touch with our support department as well. So if you scroll down to the bottom here and click on support, then we have a lot of forms for just reaching out to us directly. So you can click on trial tech support, and that will get you in touch with myself and my team. And we also have chat bots on many of these pages as well. So if you have particular questions, regarding a certain guide or something like that, please do feel free to reach out, and we're happy to get in touch and work with you as much as you like. So yeah, looking forward to getting in touch with folks. And yeah, again, thanks so much for your time on this webinar. Yeah, really appreciate everyone's attendance, and yeah, hoping to get in touch. All right, cheers.